Today we are making a disappearing 9-patch. Welcome my friends to Where Wendy Creates. Today we are making a quilt. We are making a quilt out of 54 10-inch squares. Isn't she a beauty? I have turned my bed quilt upside down, so I have a flat canvas where I can make my next creation. And I thought we would take these blocks that I have pre-cuts and these that I have trimmed up and make a floating 9-patch. And I was thinking about some tan blocks, but I really have to think I have to go with a white because the background is the white. So I'm going to go ahead and press out all these squares and then lay them out in 9 patches, go over to the sewing machine and start making our 9-patch quilt. And these are 10 designs of 2 each. And when I open them up, I see that they are all folded in 2. So we're actually pressing 2 at a time to get those wrinkles out. And then we'll probably go back through the stack and do them individually, because these looks like they have been packaged for a long time, as that crease is really in there hard. So I want them all ironed out beautifully. So I'm going to go through this stack probably a couple of times to make sure that I am laying, that all of them are pressed well and that they're all flat without that appearance of that fold line in there. And sometimes you do have to do this extra. I am using steam and I am on the cotton setting. And now we've pressed all of our white fabrics. We can lay out our 9-patch. And now I'm going to take these individually over to the sewing machine and sew these. And once we have these sewn together, we're going to go ahead and put these and sew these 3 down. And we'll take our beautiful blocks, make sure they're lined up perfectly, and stitch them across. I did want to point out, if you are getting fabric from different pre-cuts, the pre-cuts don't seem to, the 10-inch pre-cuts are not all 10-inch. So just like you're sewing and a seam can be off from a 1/4 inch from one machine to the next, well, so can your pre-cuts be off 1/4 inch to the next. So when you're cutting your fabric, try and be very precise. And when you're using pre-cuts, measure them to make sure they're the same size, because you're taking them out of different brands, cut at different places. And we are using 10-inch by 10-inch squares, but look at this one. That 10-inch by 10-inch is not 10-inch by 10-inch. Makes me very sad, y'all. So we lay it out. We try and put it right in the center. We're going to use our fingers to kind of pull it over, make sure it's kind of balanced there, and then we're going to stitch that across. It does make me sad as it's not perfect. And when you're lining up your blocks, it's a good idea to pin them so you make sure that your seams are perfectly nested together and lined up, especially since these 10-inch squares came out of different brands. We're going to take our pin and we are going to pin right in that seam to make sure our seams stay exactly where they want to be, where we want them to be, and that they are nested. One going one direction, one going the opposite direction, and a pin right down the center to hold them there. And we turn it over, it should be right on our seam line. Okay, now we can sew these 2 rows together. And look what I meant. This blue block is not only not a true 10 inch by 10 inch, but it's off almost 1/4 of an inch on one side and the other side. So see the angle here? So be careful with that. It's nice to trim them before you sew, or you're going to have to sew more of 1/4 inch and then hope it matches on the next one. So again, you're setting yourself up for failure if you're using blocks together that are not a true 10 inch by 10 inch size. Okay, we have our pins in a row and we're sewing this side of our 9 patch together. And as you saw in the beginning, my friends, we are not just doing a big old 10 inch 9 patch. We could stop there because it does look absolutely gorgeous, but we are going to continue on and making it a disappearing 9 patch. So I'm very, very excited to show you that process. And the easiest way to make sure all your seams are laying the same direction is to pin it from the back, and that way your seams are the correct direction. You know that they all line up, and next we take it over to the ironing board. And we are sewing our big beautiful blocks together. We have our pins at our seams to make sure they're laying straight and right in line with the next fabric. Now we're kind of working with our 1/4 inch seams because the blocks need to go back to the trimming board, which we will be trimming all of them before we start the next 9 patch. Now our big beautiful 9 patch goes to the ironing board. Just plugged it in, waiting for it to heat up here. And once we're sewing our blocks together, we're going to lay them out, fold them over, and we're going to pin them right at their seams so they go together easy. And with our pins in our seams, hooking them together, we're going to go ahead and sew our 1/4 inch. We have our seams laying down, we have everything lined up using our pins. Ah, make sure you have right sides together of your fabrics. Sometimes those whites with that print is deceiving, so make sure you look at it in light and get right sides to right sides. Got our white. Want to make sure we're doing right sides together. And we've got our 2 blocks, putting our other one right sides together. And when we're putting together our blocks, we want to decide which color goes next to which color. So I think we're going to swap these around. So the opposite, darkness and lightness. What do you think? This way or that way? Those are some of the choices you need to make when you're quilting, whichever is most eye-pleasing to you. And our blue squares are going very well together. But you know, my friends, one more block of 9, and then we take them over to the ironing board and the cutting mat, and we are going to cut these all up. I'm so excited. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Where Wendy Creates. Today we're taking these 9-patch blue blocks and we are cutting them all up, making a new quilt. I'm so excited. And we have pressed out our 9-patch, and now we're going to take it over to the cutting table. We're going to measure in between here, cut it straight down the center, and then measure it halfway in between these 2 blocks, cut it right down, and then we're going to flop 2 of the sides around. So let's go have fun, shall we? And my center measurements is 9.5, so we're going to come up 4 1/4, and we're going to cut it right across the length of our 9-patch. And if we've double checked and made sure our stitch line is perfectly square, we're going to take our rotary and we're going to cut right in the very center of that block at our. Once we have these cut out at 4 3/4 each, we're going to take one in this corner and flip it around, and in the opposite corner and flip it around. And then remember that every time we flip the bottom left and the top right of all of our blocks. And we're just going to fold over our blocks and take them to the sewing machine and sew them together. So I'm taking this one and sewing it to this. And coming back, laying it out, flipping this over and sewing the next. And we've sewn this one together. We will open it back up, lay it out, and we're going to take this one over to this one, back over to the sewing machine and sew these 2 together. And we're just going to sew a normal 1/4 inch and once you have your 2 blocks sewn together and your 2 blocks sewn together, we simply fold them over and sew these 2 blocks together. And once you have your next block or 9-patch cut in half, you want to take this top one and twist it around, and the bottom left and twist around to where you have 2 in the center and 2 pointing out. And now we're going to take these one by one over to the sewing machine and sew them together. And continue this process till you have all of your 9 patches flipped around and sewn back together. And our next step is pressing our blocks, ironing them out, and then we will commence to laying them out. Woohoo! So exciting. We want to press all of our blocks again. So I've got it on the hot cotton setting with steam. We're going to press all of our seams almost in the same direction that they were. Okay, so we have laid our 9 patches that have been cut in the center and cut in the center and turned. So I believe that is a disappearing 9 patch turned into this. We have used leftover 10-inch squares and then cut new out of a bolt and used scraps for all of the rest, and a pack of white 10-inch squares. So I am very excited with this quick, simple process. And my friends, you can get this done in one full day if you work at it all day long. So let's go ahead and take them over to the sewing machine and get going. We've sewn 2 by 2 by 2 together, and now we're going to sew these together. So we're going to lay this in half, put a couple of pins in it, add a couple of crucial seams, make sure we hold this part, and bring it to the sewing machine. Okay, so we have 2 of the large sides with us at the sewing table, and we can use pens now to make sure that our seams lay down the direction that they're supposed to be and that everything stays on target. Locking in my stitch up top. And now I'm going to check out a couple of seams down below, make sure that they lay the correct direction when we get there. Now, with my left hand, I'm holding the bulk, helping it pull up onto the table as we go and keeping it out. And I can see underneath to make sure we're right on top, and my fingers are right on the seam, holding the seam in the correct direction. Extra pins are your extra fingers, so feel free to use them. Now, I share a lot of the basics with you when I talk, when I sew, but I would love if you have a different way that you do things. And any part of this video, any part of any of my videos, hit that comment button. I would love for the whole audience to enjoy more and gain more. So if you have other ideas, I've always been taught and I always teach, I'm going to show you the correct way to do it. However, there could be many correct ways to do it. So feel free to share with the group or do it a different way once you know what the objective is. more accurate the seams, the more happy you're going to be with your overall quilt. So that's what extra pins do. They help us have extra fingers and keep everything in line and going the correct directions. It's easy to get off real quick, so make sure you're paying attention and lining things up each step of the way. And this machine doesn't give me the option, but if you can do needle down, always do needle down on your sewing machine. And that way, every time you stop to readjust your quilt, your needle is down and holding the existing part in place. So it's not moving around on you. When you lay it back out on the bed to match it up with the next row that we're sewing across, just make sure your pattern is lined up so you're not upside down and it's not working. Okay, so our quilt is complete. I am so excited. I am so glad you joined me today. And our quilt measurements is 56 inches by 84 inches. So we can put a border on it if we want to increase it up to a twin, a double, a queen, or a king. And my friends, see my other tutorials. I'm going to show you how to add borders to make it a queen from a twin, and etc., etc. Now, all you need to make this is 54 10-inch blocks. Remember, we put 9 of them together. We cut them in half, flip this one, and then we have our quilt. So thank you so much for joining me today. Our quilt is done. I am so excited with this. And my friends, have a great day. Enjoy sewing.